public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Belvidere Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted with the Star Ledger and Express Times and submitted to the town clerk of the town of Belvidere on December 11, 2021. Due to COVID-19, masks will be required at this meeting. The meeting will be live streamed at www.belvideresd.org. Time for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call, Shell.
Mr. Blum?
Here.
Mrs. Costantino?
Here.
Dr. Zuppeth? Mrs. Weidlich?
Here.
I'm sorry. Yes. That worked that time. Mrs. Duckworth?
Hello. Here.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Mrs. Scott?
Here.
Mr. Smith? Mrs. Steffen?
Here.
Mr. Ty?
Here.
Mrs. Williams?
Okay, so this is a work session. I guess we could do committee reports first. Finance, is there any, we didn't have policy, there's no negotiations. I was gonna leave finance till last.
That's curriculum.
Yeah, we have curriculum. Everybody got your, agenda and the notes from the curriculum meetings. Anybody have any questions or comments? No? All right, so I'm gonna turn over to you then for finance for the facility plan discussion.
Okay. Jim and I put together an agenda to go over the different facility items that are out there right now. I emailed it out this morning just so you'd have a couple minutes if you had a chance to take a look, but otherwise I passed it out. And I did try to highlight and color code it to make it pretty simple to look at a glance. The first thing that we wanted to talk about, and some of this is, it's going to be redundant from November because we already did discuss this at our November facilities meeting, and then a little bit like last month that we just said we would have a little more time to be more detailed tonight if we would like to be. But there's a New Jersey Clean Energy grant out for different HVAC projects. The short of it, it's 75% funding of your projects up to $5 million per school. But it's first come, first serve. You have to be chosen. I believe it's need-based. And we were able to get our application in pretty quickly because we did have an energy audit already completed previously by a company called TRC. So we submitted all that, but because this is HVAC related, there are more specific requirements that you also have to have. So depending which architect we talk to, we may have, put in an application for, $2 million or up to $5 million worth of HVAC work. Because if you look on page 2, it's the 4 blue items that we submitted for: the roof exhaust fans with controls, replacing 3 AON units, classroom univents, and the auditorium AHU and units. So in order for this grant application to keep moving and we can see if it gets legs, we have some more work, almost like money we have to spend to find out. And that's the next proposal, or the first proposal that you see from H2M Architects and Engineers. And you'll see that they propose that they have to do a district-wide feasibility study in phase 1, which is a lump sum of $9,750. And then they have to do 2 reports to continue with the grant requirements, an assessment report and a verification report, which they're saying is probably between $15,000 and $25,000. Jim, what would you like to add?
When I talked to Mr. Flynn in reference to that is all 3 schools. If we do not put 3rd Street into the grant, which I think is a waste of money and time, we could probably cut this cost down probably like maybe to like $7,000, give or take, for the phase 1, and probably maybe you're talking, low 20s to mid 20s, probably low like 22,000 or something like that. So it comes say maybe $5,000-6,000 possibly by keeping Third Street out of the grant, which I don't know if, where the board's gonna go with Third Street, but I don't see, right now, that I don't see us, I think it's a waste of our money as a district to putting a study in at Third Street, because it's gonna take so much money to bring that school up to any kind of standard that we could use it again properly. So I would, just keep that in mind. If we just keep Oxford Street Elementary School at 807 and the high school into it, we'll save probably, I would say, $5,000 to $7,000 get estimated on that price.
Aren't we thinking about opening Third Street though next year? Isn't that a
That's
consideration?
what I'm saying.
Yeah, we have to.
Are we?
I thought we have to.
With needing the third preschool, we're not gonna have a choice.
Yeah.
Right, so why would we keep Third Street out of this then? That's my question.
Okay, you're gonna do, I don't know what.
You may not know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're just gonna leave it as what it is now, not gonna open it back up, I wouldn't wanna spend that kind of money. But if you're talking about, like I said, I don't know what the board has planned.
I think we're opening it
Well,
up
I think
next
they're
year.
almost a little bit two different things too. I mean, we're
Right.
doing this work for the grant. We're trying to get grant money,
Mhm.
and the grant projects don't relate to Third Street, those 4 items.
Right now, it doesn't.
Right.
But if we're gonna maintain Third Street and continue to use it, we might as well include it in this study for the simple reason that down the road, this is kind of like our homework. We might be able to get additional grants for Third Street and down the road then. So,
It just depends what the board's flavor
Right.
is for, in some ways, we're looking at spending, maybe $25,000 minimal to possibly get, it could be a multi-million-dollar grant. Or do we want to spend, $5,000 or $7,000 less because we don't know? It's not a sure thing. So it's kind of a gamble. And if we don't know if we need to do additional work to Third Street, I don't know if we should include it anyway. I mean, I'm not feeling that we're going to automatically come up with $5 million, from this grant to add additional projects on. I feel like
the
it's-
last conversations we had, we shouldn't consider Third Street additional. It should be a part of the equation. Keep that space if we're expanding. I'm not sure I'm following.
It's only $10,000 more. I mean,
Yeah.
we already have to
I
spend
mean,
between,
this is a big
right.
grant that we could take advantage of. Why wouldn't we
Is-
upgrade all the facilities that we are gonna need?
Is there stuff at Third Street we could upgrade as part of this
Well, I
grant?
think that's the question, Jimmy. So right now, we're looking at an energy and HVAC grant. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about classrooms and things like that.
Right, and we submitted for these 4
Right.
projects already.
So you're right. So we're getting up,
Only these projects can
so
go.
we're
Right.
getting up to 5 million, up to 5 million. Even if we reopen Third Street, chances are we are not going to do a full-on HVAC project there, correct?
I would not believe so,
Right.
no.
So I think that's where we're crossing lines right now. Opening it and doing a full-on HVAC project are two different things.
If we can only go after these 4 items and they don't pertain to Third Street, then that makes it an easy question.
Right.
I see. Yeah.
I mean, because it's a gamble, doing this feasibility study, getting these reports done on the HVAC, it's a gamble we're taking.
Doesn't
could
mean we're
have-
going to get the grant.
It
It's
could
not
have very
about money.
big reward.
Right.
But since we didn't apply for anything at Third Street, I don't know if we should gamble the extra 5,000 to 7,000.
Right. No, I agree
For
that
that
if none of
reason.
these things apply to Third Street, then maybe it is a moot
Right.
point. What does everybody else think about that? Might as well decide that while we're here.
I don't think I have clarification. Is Third Street up to code for ventilation?
But I don't think we're talking code here. I think what we're talking about is an HVAC upgrade, correct?
Upgrade.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Right.
Okay.
I don't think we have
That's
any
different thing.
HVAC in
Okay.
Third Street,
Well,
correct? I mean, that's really what
was
we're
under
talking
the
about.
impression that we were behind on certain things, so that was what I was
Right.
worried about. Okay. That answers my question then.
All right, so I think everybody's on the page, and we won't put Third Street into the study for the phases.
But we'll have H2M go forward with getting the study done so that we can get it submitted with the grant application, the additional
Right.
stuff that they requested so that we can find out if maybe we could get some of this money.
Okay, so I think the board's all on board with that.
I'm not sure. Did you?
Well, when I talked to
that
Mr. Flynn
information?
today, I told him hopefully to have some kind of answer by tomorrow. I'm supposed to contact him and say, yay, it's a go, or no, and so forth. He understands that we need to prioritize this and move as fast as we can, so I would say we'll probably have our feet hitting the ground before probably start, maybe possibly even before the end of the month, or 1st of January. Because there's a lot of legwork. There's going to be a lot of cooperation between myself and him and so forth to get everything done. So I think he wants to move on as fast as he can. That's why, like I said, he wanted me to contact him tomorrow and let me know where we're standing.
I don't know. I mean, our hope is that when we submitted it November 22nd, that's our placeholder, that's what puts us in line. I don't know. Okay. It seemed like, the different webinars we went through on this, they were really still laying out the information, and I don't think they were really going to be rolling too much until January. So I feel like we were quick on the ball.
Yeah, no, I think. Okay.
But I don't know. Okay, so the next item, as you'll see on the second page, is basically became our first priority on our potential project list, was the emergency generator. And the last time we spoke about it is that emergency generators themselves are hard to come by as far as the build time and the supply, the supply backlog that's out there for everything. That it would be possible to install for summer of 2023, so we wanted to start working to get that project, the paperwork put together so we could go out and bid it. Jim just had a little more information as he started getting that process going that he just wanted to keep the board up to speed with.
Okay. Last time we met, Mr. Blum brought up us getting a rental in here to cover, God forbid, if we have a power outage during this winter or next winter. Did some more research. There would be an outlay of cash to try to get a company in here. You'd have to first have diagrams to have drawings done. But we'd have to have transfer switches, conduits, and so forth brought in. It's not like you just run an extension cord. So it would take major time and probably, I'm not even sure about the dollar signs, how much it would cost to do that. So realistically, we better hope for the next 2 winters, if we approve this for the 23 summer, that we don't have any major storms where we lose power and heat for any period of time. Because it doesn't look feasible to have anything in place before that. The other part of it is, when I talked to one of the contractors, he's done for like A&Ps and so forth, he said the size of the generator that we would need, A&P has them on like a flatbed trailer. He said, you were talking major money, and so I was looking into thinking more that, hopefully initially I was hoping that we could be able to run the whole facility, keep the facility running, use an evacuation center if God forbid we need it, and so forth. Realistically, it's probably looking more like we'd put a smaller generator in, according to the design and so forth, that would, if minimal, give us minimal lighting and keep the building up and warm and from freezing. But the other parts of the equation too is if we went with a super big generator probably to handle the facility, the EPA air permits and so forth could be probably $5,000 to $10,000 a year for something that maybe never happened or only happened once a year. Other options we look at is one of the problems is, like I said, we have an old building, so nothing is centralized as far as being able to disconnect things. But if we go to this project, we might go to the generator we have now for conversation piece has an automatic transfer switch. We lose power right now, transfer switch will go to emergency generator, and it'll start up the emergency lighting. With this system here, we'd have to see cost-wise, it might be a manual transfer switch versus automatic transfer switch. So middle of the night, I get a phone call, power's out, we lost heat. I would physically have to come in, transfer manually the power switch, turn down breakers and so forth in the building, and then start the generator.
So
don't know
these
what
are basically just some things that, whereas we're in discussion
Right,
with
so-
the,
So just like the gist of things is, we got to get, if we're going to move forward, we need to get drawings done, as electrical engineer, somebody in here do drawings and so forth, and see the best way to go. And personally, I think it'd be beneficial to us, if we're going to do this in the summer of '23, to try to allocate the money, some of it at least this year, so we can start getting the groundwork, the conduits and so forth, because that's going to take time. It's not going to be very timely to getting all that done. So, you know, I don't think you want to wait till summer of '23 to start all this work. I really don't. I think you want to start the groundwork as fast as we can, because of the fact, too, that getting supplies is very difficult.
so I think the biggest thing you wanted to clarify with, at least with the finance committee, that the generator that we're probably looking at is not going to be a switch the whole school can run,
Correct.
just, you know, like it would have run today. But it'll be better than just emergency lighting, and then our heating system could freeze and we lose the, you know, the whole functionality of, you know, our lifeline systems.
Right.
So it's probably going to be somewhere in the middle as we decide on, you know, what cost range we're at. So he just wanted to make sure that we clarified that, so that the expectation wasn't that, you know, school would run seamlessly regardless.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen.
Okay.
Okay.
Whoa, does anybody have any questions about that? No? Okay, now go.
The next item is the athletic field upgrades, which is something that we've discussed for probably years, gone back and forth, and most of these things are very hard to make decisions on. And I don't know that this is going to give us any light bulb clarity, but it's at least definitely, some concrete numbers as to what we've found. So we've had 2 architects right now submit to us proposals. You'll see that grass field upgrades with irrigation, they're, in the same line. The first one's between $560,000 and $710,000 to do 1 field with irrigation and redoing the field with some type of sod or, good grass overlay. The other one's $650,000. So they're at least same ballpark. But then when you turn to what would you do if we put in, 1 field, kind of a multi-use turf, similar to the Warren Hills model, looking at the turf only, not the entire stadium, the fencing, any type of retaining walls that we might need, like, because we have the difference in elevation, et cetera. Then we got pricing different between $2.6 million and $1.35 million. So we're not really sure where that will fall out. And then the proposal from H2M, which included the turf field and just your basic track, that, I've got to say, it seems light to be 1.65, so only $300,000 more to add a track around it seems lighter than what we've ever heard. So what they're recommending, H2M, they're on B4, is what they're calling their field renovation feasibility study, grass versus turf, for $10,000, where they would literally do all the groundwork to determine what would be best specifically at Belvidere. They're currently undergoing a very similar study at a different private school, and that's I have these 2 proposals attached in green, where you can, kind of highlighted, the biggest pieces of them to see what they are offering to do. The first architect, PSNA, they also gave us proposal to do schematics and survey work, et cetera, for a grass field. And theirs was in 2 parts. Phase 1 and Phase 2 were $16,000. So I think that's which direction we really need to go, is somebody to do, and, that's basically what finance had discussed, that we would move ahead with the schematics and see what the true costs would be, so we could then determine, 1, what are the costs, and then 2, do we have any money that we could utilize to actually do the project? We talked about lease purchase options, referendum options, et cetera. But I think our bottom line is and I'm caught in the same boat as everyone. When we talk about one item, okay, let's get 1 grass field up and running and see how it goes. But then it's like, well, if we're going to spend, $600,000 on 1 grass field when we have, what do we have, at least 5? you know, you multiply that out, like, the math doesn't work. You might as well take one field, make it a multi-use, and you have a school use schedule similar to how we use the gymnasium to allocate it to each team. So we really just need the more concrete numbers from some type of study so that we can make that decision, because depending on our discussions, I think all of us can lean one way and then lean the other, and in the end, we don't get any steps forward. Thoughts, Jim?
Yeah, I think both studies, with former information and this study here is vital for us to move forward. I think otherwise we're just going to be spinning our wheels, and we're going to be doing this 2 years down the road. I think we need to do the legwork, our homework, get the facts, and then make a decision with the numbers and a professional opinion in front of us. I personally think the turf is the way to go, for the simple reason, if we do a turf field, we're not moving the varsity baseball field, we're not using a soccer field, they can still use it for practice and so forth, so you're not moving, right now, the lights and so forth are working fine and so forth, so I think, best bang for your buck, I think we should seriously look about going the turf direction.
So you're saying turf, no track, right, Jimmy?
Right now, personally, I don't believe you can get the track in without moving lights and so forth. So that would be a big nut to put into it. So, I mean, we could always put it down. And also, if you're looking on the track proposal for H2M, initially they were saying, like, goalposts and this and that. There's a lot of little extras in there that we don't really need. We have some of this stuff there right now, so it's not like there's some built-in cushion there that we could probably eliminate. But I honestly feel that the turf field in the long term is going to be beneficial more than trying to just go with turf.
And as far as, talking turf versus track and lighting, if in this second proposal that's attached with the green highlighting from H2M, they talk about lighting itself being $650,000.
Right.
So, we move our lights that we have existing, that's a big chunk of change. Whereas we have discussed the way that we currently have set up, even if you put a multi-use just turf field where the football field is, we still have, our existing temporary walking track, that area could be made into a 6-lane track itself, just separate. They wouldn't have to be together, just because we have more land, just maybe not a big enough spot in each place.
If you put, though, the $650,000 for the lights onto the 1.65, you're still only at 2.3 million, which is less than the 2.6 million from PSNA. And that gives us I'm assuming that gives us a regulation track for our track and field.
No, that 2.6 is just the turf field for PSNA.
So you're not even getting a track.
There's no
or
track
lights.
cost in
So
there.
the other one you're getting for 2.3, you're getting the track and the lights.
Right.
So you're getting the whole kit and caboodle. And again, that'll give us a track for the track and field that they could actually use and not have to go someplace else.
Yeah, 6-lane is regulation. Some do have 8 lanes, but they're hosting like the bigger events.
Yeah.
Kelly, were you at the place where the track is now, it's feasible to put a larger one in?
We could put a real regulation track out where the current walking track is. But if we wanted to put a regulation track around the turf field where our football area is, then we'd have to move our lighting.
And we'd probably lose our varsity baseball.
And we'd have to move the varsity baseball field. We'd really have to find out can we move the current lighting to still utilize that? Because I don't know that we need to dive into $650,000 for new lighting. So that's when it comes back to, all right, turf where the football field is, track out where the existing walking track is. You get both, but you don't have to change the lighting issue. It's not as succinct as the Warren Hills model, but you basically still get all of it.
How much would it be to do the track in its existing location?
I did not get a proposal on that, but we could ask them to include that in this feasibility study. If we decide to go with H2M, for $10,000, then we want that information as well.
Just so you know, though, if we would go with, either spot we go with, the soil studies and so forth, drainage and so forth, we're definitely gonna have to do some, I would say, major drainage projects out in the area of the existing track with the varsity soccer field. Because the one end, especially closest to the school, is like a swamp when we get rain. So if we do decide to, either place, we're gonna have to do soil studies and make sure the drainage is proper. But down the road, which I think is a good location for it, but we would have to do more extensive probably drainage work to make sure that it's gonna be a vital location.
I mean, we would require that they lay all that out,
Right.
that would be the point of their feasibility study, to make sure that we wouldn't have drainage issues.
Right.
I would tend to go where you're going, Mary, and if you're gonna wind up paying 1.6 for a turf field and a track, another 650 for lighting, let's say, take the baseball out of the equation for a second, or you're gonna spend 1.35 and then probably another 5 or 6 for a track. Now, keep in mind, though, we put the track over by the soccer field, there's nowhere for parents to sit and watch the meet,
And there's no lights.
and there's no lights.
Right.
So, for that extra couple $100,000, is it worth it to do it all in one spot? So if we host the track meet, which we would hope multiple ones, right, and then we start talking about maybe that's a way to get some of the kids in that, we talked
Right.
about the middle school, have middle school track and things like that, the parents can watch it. Someone whose son runs track, it's not ideal to not be up in the stands watching a track meet.
Right.
So just to throw that out there and part of the conversation.
Good point.
So those would be things that we would tell them if we're gonna have them do the $10,000 study, that's what we want included. We want, just, you'll see in their quick proposal, we kind of want options, 4 and 5
Right.
in there. What would the cost be separate? What would the cost be together? Can we move the existing lights, the 2 poles that are near the varsity baseball field? Are they in good enough shape that they could be moved back? And then what model would we use if we take the varsity baseball field out and we have to collapse that over to where the JV field? So, I mean, that's what we really need is
Yeah.
a hands-on, specific to Belvidere. What do our fields look like, a couple of years from now?
Well, it all gets down to affordability. And just imagine a poor family hardly able to scrape enough food to pay their bills and put clothing on the back of their children, and they're looking at buying a Maserati. That's what I analyze this situation to be. We have many, many, many other more worthy places to put our money. Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments?
Everybody here knows my personal opinion, but being from a sending district, I just think that I agree that sometimes we don't have the money to do this, and when we do find the money, we find other things to spend it on. I think that the students of Belvidere and now and in the future deserve to have us really think about this, because I have 27-year-olds that when they were here, the same thing was talked about and nothing was done. So as you stated before, you need to start to think about these things now, and you need to start to work on them. And yeah, there's other things that we need to spend money on, but right now, we're one of the few that don't have adequate fields that our student athletes go and compete at. So it is something that you need to think about. And as I said, my 27-year-olds would have graduated from here, but I just think that if you're not going to do it, why throw money at it? If you're not going to make that commitment, then why even look at it? And why make that promise to the students that are going to be coming in? Belvidere is starting to grow again. People are starting to move back into town. And I just think that future students need this. Otherwise, we're going to lose all of these kids to other schools.
And that's my concern.
Yeah.
You know, we need to, we already have lower numbers. We're trying to build, you're right, it is growing, and especially the younger ones. And I mean, I know it's a big price tag, but I've been thinking a lot about, you know, social and emotional health with these kids. And athletics are up there. It's very important to them, and it's important for them to have pride in their school. And I think going to other schools, you know, being a little always jealous of everybody else, you know, why don't they deserve it? So,
And it's not just the kids that are actually the athletes, it's the people that it brings out to the track meets, to the football, to the field hockey.
the community. yeah.
Baseball games. You know, it's not just the actual athletes, it's the community that, and with a community type atmosphere that can grow, you know, I just think it's something that you need to think about. And as I said, if you're not going to think about it, don't make the promise, because the promises have been made over the years, and it's just like kicking a dead horse. I mean, it's just not, nothing happens. So if you're not going to, you need to make that clear to our athletes now, because I'm sure that I know several of them from years ago that still talk about, you know, like, you know, they've said it before. It's never going to happen. So.
Would have major impact upon our taxes, so I feel the taxpayers have a vested interest in it, and they should be polled about it.
Well, you can do a referendum. There's no.
For sure.
I think we would have to.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I don't think we could do
Like-
this without it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree, Bob. I get it, but I also get that even though people that live in Belvidere think their taxes are high, go live somewhere else, because, or look at living somewhere else, because you can't afford their taxes. Your taxes in Belvidere are not high in comparison to other places in New Jersey. So I'm sort of tired of that argument, and I left Belvidere for that reason. My taxes were high then. They're not high now. I would move back to Belvidere and get my little, as I called it, my postage stamp. I don't see that that's a viable argument anymore. It used to be. It really did, but it's not anymore. You can't go even into Washington Township, who has a beautiful park. They have a beautiful school district fields for their kids that Belvidere's lacking in. And I have said this before, the investment not only has to be in the school, it has to be in the town. And the town needs to learn how to invest in itself. And I know that I've started arguments before with people in the town about that, and I really believe that. And you need to invest in your town, and you have to want to live here. And if you don't want to live here, then you need to find somewhere else to go. And that's really my thought.
I think the question really is, we're trying to decide if we want to put in a $2 million field, but we really don't know what a field's going to cost. So I think the real question is, do we want to spend $10,000 to get some actual costs together so we can have a real discussion on what it would and wouldn't cost and what our options are? It could just be a field. It could be a field and a track. It could be field track lights. It could be so many things. And until we know exactly the dollars that we're talking about, I don't know that we can even make an intelligent decision.
Correct.
So I think the question is, do we want to spend $10,000 to get a study done to determine what the cost would be?
I
Mary Ann,
think
the
as
other-
a group, you've decided that an ad hoc committee that sports were so important, and I've only been here a few meetings, but sports were so important to you to keep building them and to keep seeing those programs continue. You created an ad hoc committee for that. You've brought in people from the community. You need to keep moving forward with that. This is the next logical step. You need a way to decide, is it feasible? What can we afford? What could we put on a referendum?
I agree.
Mary Ann, I think when you look at this and you say that, do we want to do the field, do we want to do the field and track and whatever, if we did everything there, it would come up to almost $3 million. The question that I have is, what would it cost for us financially if we borrowed the money? You know, we're putting out between $75,000 and $100,000 a year to maintain what we have now. Would that money cover the payments on a new track, a new, field, everything there? And I think that's something we need to look at too, as to what our actual cost would be on a monthly basis,
Right.
and see what it would be.
Absolutely.
Agreed. Anybody else? So, do we want to release $10,000 to do a study?
Yes.
Yeah.
Seems like the overwhelming majority would like to do that. So go ahead, Shel. Debbie, let's get a study done. Let's find out what it's going to cost. Get all the pieces laid out, the different, just a field and track, field track lights, move the track, redo the track, the other track, whatever.
Okay.
And we're gonna use H2M to be clear, correct?
I
That's
would.
what this- that's
Yeah, I
B,
would.
H2M. And again, that's Mr. Flynn. He was here for a long time. He knows the
That's
facilities
Joe,
too.
right?
Yep. So,
And then the last item that I had on the facility discussion agenda, this just came out a couple of weeks ago, but it's another, it's not necessarily a grant, it's like similar to the ESSER 1, 2, and 3 pieces, which was part of the American Recovery Plan, but this was just another funding that came out through the DOE. They called it the Emergent and Capital Maintenance Needs Funding. And there was an allocation made out to each school district depending upon, I don't know what formula they used, but Belvidere's allocation was $17,315. So it's just an application that we have to fill out, say what we're going to use it for, and if they approve it, they apparently just electronic transfer the funds. So what we're going to try to do for that is some of the HVAC needs that you have in blue on page 2, some of them have some more emergent or immediate repairs and stuff that we need to have just to kind of limp through until we can eventually get to, one, finding out if we're going to get grant funding for them, et cetera. So that's what we're planning to indicate that we're going to spend this money on for that piece, and hopefully we'll get that money as well. And that was the only things that we had here to discuss.
I have a question.
Anybody have any other thing else that we've forgot or other loose
Well,
ends?
Because we talked about Third Street.
Mhm.
Is there anything we need to do to that building to open it back up in September?
That's an open, first of all, to what extent are we going to open all the floors? I mean,
we're gonna need to probably at least three classrooms, at least.
I'm sorry,
At least 3, at the very least. We
3
would need
classrooms?
Yeah.
I'm almost thinking as far as ventilation, the best rooms, believe it or not, would be the basement because they have the outside air units and so forth in there. So, and you have the restrooms down there and so forth. And I think you got the old art room. That's a fairly decent sized room. You have the room was like preschool. So you got at least 2 large rooms down there. You got the gym down there. We could get 3 rooms. Like I said, I think I probably would put my interest in opening up as many as we can downstairs for the simple reason of the ventilations that we have. The units we have, I think, is better than this natural ventilation, open the windows up. And you have the restrooms there. If we're gonna be doing that, I want to start looking at it now because we've got a lot of work to do, and we're not going to do it in 2.5 months. Just cleaning and because I mean, pretty much when they left that building, they left all their junk there, and it's going to take some time to clean it out and get things organized and so forth. And so, please, if you're going to really consider opening that up, let me know as soon as we can so we can start getting a game plan together because we're not going to be able to pull it off with what we have right now in 2.5 months. It's going to be a big project. I'm not saying it won't get done, but the sooner we can start planning on it, working on it, looking at it more seriously.
I would say we're gonna discuss that at the next finance meeting, so early January, so we'll probably be able to tell you.
Okay.
But as
By the
far
middle.
as any systems or anything that would have to change, I mean, when we first left there, the entire point of the administration, the B.O.E., at least administration being over there, is to be placeholders to keep that as a school building, to maintain our grandfathered ADA compliance, et cetera. And we've been utilizing the building, so it has the heat, I mean, it doesn't have air, but
And we didn't modify anything with the
all
state of New
systems
Jersey.
are go. So as long as we don't have any students that need, any accommodations at this point, we should be able to re-enter the building very similarly to the way that we left the building.
I think
Right.
that's I think that's my concern. You know, what if we have a child with an IEP in the preschool program? It's inevitable to happen at some point. What are
Right,
we
and
going
that
to do
was
as far
always
as
our,
handicap accessibility?
You know, for 100 years, right? That was always the
Yeah.
what
Oh,
if.
I know, but I mean, is it time to address that? Because we if we're growing, and we definitely need it, and I like the idea of the early learning center for the, you know, the pre-K kids. If that's a goal of ours to move in that direction, then I think we need to look at taking care of that.
Next
Well, we
finance
definitely
committee.
have to have the discussion about like the longevity of how long we would, you know, think we would need the building, have the building to be open. You know, there's been prices in the past put around for, you know, having elevators installed, et cetera. So, I mean, it is something that can happen.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of when and if the timing is right.
All right, so we'll pick that up at the next finance meeting.
Correct.
Does anybody else have any topics for finance? Or anything they'd like the finance committee to look at or investigate or anything at all? No? Any other committee stuff we need to discuss?
We did meet the ad hoc sports, I'm calling
Oh,
it the ad
yeah.
hoc sports
We
committee.
should
I
add
don't know
that
if
to the
that's-
list.
Yeah, we should add that to the list. I don't know if that's necessarily what we all want to call it, but we have met twice since the last board meeting, and you want me to do all the talking, Mrs. Scott?
Sure,
I
go
figured you would say yes. The two things we mostly focused on at this point were looking at, well, overall, we want to try to figure out how to rebuild the high school sports through the youth sports. I think that's the best way to say it. So our two main focal points that we've discussed as a group, and just so everybody knows who's in the group, Mr. Karabinas, Mr. Bartow, Mrs. Duckworth, Mrs. Scott, Mrs. Pell from the community, and we had two students from the high school, Gianna Franceschino, Andrew Durr, and then I think it was 3 or 4 kids from the elementary school. Just kind of kicking it around. Oh, and Jordan Treffler as a coach too. We focused on two things. Number one is bringing back in the district running sports camps over the summer. We've certainly had some mixed results with our sports camps back in the past, but the district really hasn't had a hand in running them. So we thought as a committee it'd be better if we paid our coaches to run the camps. We've already got the dates pretty much set out. As soon as we get back from Christmas or holiday break, Mr. Karabinas will get something out there to kind of as a save the date. We also outlined when our academic programs would be. The piece of it that we're going to do is we are going to open it up, our camps from K to 8. We're also going to invite the sending districts to send their kids. In a cluster meeting I had last week, both Mr. Thompson and Newman both agreed that if we were to run this, they would contribute to the cost of it too, to be allowed to send their kids there. So we thought that was a great idea. We would be looking to do it in the early evening rather than first thing in the morning. So that way for those 7th and 8th graders who don't want to roll out of bed at 7:30 to come to a camp, we can have something later in the day for them and they can be here. I think also for some of the coaches, it'd be nice to not have to get up first thing in the morning. And then we would ask, some of our high school students to help out, let them earn community service hours for participating. And again, it would be free to the parents to send their kids to the camp to try to get more students here. We're also going to hopefully reach out to St. Luke's for a donation of T-shirts or pennies or something like that to kind of boost the program. And we would run 3 different weeks. One would be all the fall sports. The next week would be all the winter sports, and the next would be all the spring. So that way they're not conflicting. And if I'm a 3-sport athlete, I can come all 3 weeks and not have to choose between which sport I wanted to come to. The second thing that we talked about was a resurgence or a rebuilding or even a reintroduction of a 7th and 8th grade team that we would host cluster-wide. So if we had, we always seem to focus on basketball. I don't know why it seems to be the one we always talk about. We had a 7th and 8th grade basketball team. We would invite all the kids from the sending districts to try out and put a team out. And Mr. Bartow is going to start to reach out to some of the local athletic directors to see who has those 7th and 8th grade teams. Even if we played 1 game a week or 2 games a week or 6 or 8 weeks or something like that, just to get the kids together. Our high school coaches could work with them a little bit just to get some interest and to get introduction to those high school coaches. So those are our 2 main focuses. I don't know if anybody wants to jump in from the committee as to where we're going. I personally thought we had 2 very productive meetings. you know, I think everybody's ideas were well taken, well respected, bounced off each other really well. So I'm going to send out these notes with my weekly notes on Friday. It'll come as potential summer 2022 dates. You'll see what it is and kind of how we're thinking the cost would be.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
The, use basketball as an example. Is there no, and I've been at this for so long, but is there no BYA basketball anymore?
There is.
There is.
Mm-hmm.
So this would be in addition to?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, in addition to.
For just the 7th and 8th grade levels.
Right.
Just so that
Yeah.
our high school coaches have easier access to these kids and kind of, especially like Mr. Schreffler for football, he can, whoever is going to be coaching the 7th and 8th grade, if there was a 7th and 8th grade football team, I'm not saying there is, he would have easier access to work with the kids, know his system a little bit earlier, and hopefully, you know, have an easier transition and, you know, eventually build a little bit of success. So that's the idea.
Basketball in particular, do we have gym space for this?
Yeah, so that was the next piece, is that in the discussion with the cluster, we did talk about Belvidere probably can't host everything.
Mhm.
And White Township stepped up and said they would, you know, let's say they host basketball, we'd pick a time, say 3:45. I committed Belvidere and Harmony because I can, that we would offer transportation for the kids to get them over there, you know, probably running, you know, either a small bus or, you know, a couple of vans, something like that, just to get them there. And then, as we kind of kicked it around last night, we thought basketball might be the only true challenge. We've just been talking some of the fields that existed in town, that maybe we can, you know, I'm going to reach out. I'll reach out to Mr. Mitchell, and we'll have a conversation about what we can use, just like that, just to start.
Plus,
to
if it's
build
right
up.
after school, BYA doesn't start till, you know,
Right.
earliest
5
usually
o'clock, yeah.
five
Right.
o'clock, 4:30. So
Okay.
So,
And the only other, I'm just gonna throw this out there, years ago, because my kids are with Colleen's, 25, 27, and 29, the camps were phenomenal.
Mhm.
They were run by the booster clubs. And the high school students, the athletes, participated, all of the entire team participated with all of the applicants, and they got a T-shirt, whatever they got, it was something. But it was a win-win for everybody, because the kids got involved, the booster club got money, because they charge a minimal amount, like $25 to join. The coaches got to play with the kids and run their thing, and the parents were happy because they were involved, because we did it from like 6 to 9 or something like that. So I'm just gonna throw that out there, but I mean, they were closing it down. There was too many kids for what they ran. So I don't know if you've reached out to the booster clubs, but I think that would be a good way for them to earn a little extra cash too.
Yeah, we could do that. I think that we were thinking maybe that we'd build something and then hopefully hand it off. You know, because we you know, in talking with, you know, I hate to put Mr. Schreffler on the spot, but he was the coach that was there. You know, the numbers we were throwing out for a week's worth of work were attractive to a coach. So that way, if they knew ahead of time, they would dedicate their time. We'd be looking at probably 2 coaches per sport. So you'd have one coach that would work with, let's say, K to 6, and then the other coach would work maybe 6 to 8, and then the high school kids would help participate and stuff like that too. Sort of the model we were envisioning when we talked about it.
That's just my 2 cents on that.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything?
Just as a sending district, I think this is a phenomenal idea. As a parent whose son plays quite a few sports, coming into Belvidere and going to other districts, I think it's important for Belvidere to get these kids together sooner so they can learn to play together, because that is one of the things that our programs are lacking. You know, you have all the, 3 districts coming together, and they've never played before together. And I think it's a phenomenal idea. Also, the social aspect. They get to know each other sooner rather than freshman year. You're thrown in together. So thank you. Good job.
I agree. I think that's a great idea, because I see it all the time, working with B.O.E. all the time. You can have 5 kids in a town, not enough for a team that needs kids, and 2 will go, 1 will go. We see it all the time. We've opened up soccer a lot in Belvidere to White Township kids, Hope kids, whatever, and 1 comes or 2 comes. They have a great time. They are welcome. The kids have a great time, but it's sad because, you know, whether it's they don't want to go because they're afraid because they don't know the other kids, or some of it's parents won't drive them, you know, the 5 minutes from White Township to here, or vice versa. Belvidere does the same thing. And you have a divide where we're all in the same area. It shouldn't be, But we have a lot of kids that have played baseball, soccer, basketball with Belvidere kids, and now they're coming into town to play and hang out with them. And they're getting to know each other, especially in that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade groups, because all the sending districts right now are struggling with getting that, I'd say probably 5th grade up. You always lose kids when you get to that grade anyway, because they decide they don't want to play or whatever. We were seeing it probably 5 years ago, I'd say. Now, since COVID, it's even worse with just people not returning and wanting to play. So we all have these kids that come out to play, but then we can't form teams. And I think us working together is the only way we're going to get those kids willing to play with the other teams and not be, well, I only plan to play with this group or that group. So I think we're going to see an improvement there. Like with basketball, we have right now 4 basketball teams in Belvidere. That's 3rd grade to 8th grade. That's it. We had 3rd and 4th grade boys team and no coach. No parent would step up to coach, so we lost them. We have not enough for a girls' 7th and 8th grade team. And the other towns are having the same struggle, so our numbers are really low. Soccer is probably not as big of a struggle, but even for soccer, 7th and 8th grade, we had 3 out of the 4 towns, and some of us had to come together. Like the Harmony team was a mix of other teams to get them there, and a lot of pulling up 5th and 6th graders to make these teams. So when they break up, only a handful of those kids are actually 8th graders going ahead. And then again, you have them where they don't know anybody and they might not want to go out. And it's a big difference too. I've noticed even with my own son, when you're a kid playing rec sports and you're used to playing twice a week, an hour and a half, you know, you go out, you have fun with your friends, making a commitment to a high school team where now all of a sudden you're playing 5, 6 days a week, having games, having long nights, being here late, it's a complete switch for them. They're not used to it. So if something's a little more structured, a little bit more regular, I think it would be a good transition from the twice a week into maybe 3 or 4 times a week to now it's your life for the next 3 months. I think it'll be a good stepping stone for them.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, we have about 5 minutes till our real board meeting starts, so maybe we'll adjourn this one, then we can take a 5-minute break if anybody has to use the bathroom, and then we'll come back for a regular one. So a motion and a second to adjourn our work session.
Motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, work session adjourned. We'll reconvene at 7 o'clock for the The New Jersey Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Belvidere Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted with the Star Ledger and the Express Times and submitted to the town clerk of the town of Belvidere on January 14th, 2021. Due to COVID-19, masks will be required at this meeting. The meeting will be live streamed at www.belvideresd.org. Flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call, Shell.
Mr. Blum?
Here.
Mrs. Costantino?
Here.
Dr. Zuppeth?
Here.
Mrs. Duckworth?
Here.
Mrs. Weidlich?
Here.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Mrs. Scott?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mrs. Steffen?
Here.
Mrs. Ty?
Here.
Mr. Ty? And then Mrs. Williams.
Here.
Okay, we're at the point in our meeting for public participation. Is there anybody in the public that has anything to say? No? Okay, we'll close public participation. Correspondence, Shell?
I don't have any.
None? Superintendent's report?
Okay, I do have a few things. I'm sure everybody's excited to hear me say. I do want to start out by mentioning that we just talked a little bit about sports, and Mr. Carabinus's intramural programs will be starting the 5th of January, so right when we get back that Wednesday, and also the academic assistance for the 3rd through 5th grade will also be starting that week. I know he'll have a classroom announcement that's coming out shortly and how to sign up, and I think the sign-ups are right when we come back to They're now current, okay. So that'll be up and running too. We did, that's one thing I didn't mention. We did talk a little bit about intramurals and some of the other fun things that have been going on in school. The badminton tournament that took place at the high school a couple weeks ago seems to be one of the biggest hits that we've had in a long time. So we talked a little bit about also possibly doing something maybe once a week or so between the classes and as another fundraiser, just to continue to get the kids active and doing fun things. So I did want to mention that too. Our concerts this year are slowly but surely moving to all virtual just because of the quarantining issues that we had. I know Mr. Conte had planned to do something in person tomorrow night, but he did have to make an adjustment because we've lost a few students to quarantine, so he's going to put something out virtually, and then he will have something hopefully in person when we get back from break. Mr. Zetterstrom also shot something for virtual too, so. And I know Mr. Z reached out to me last week. He wound up having to play the piano because the piano player was out, and we were short some drummers, so hasn't been too easy. So keep your eye open for the virtual concerts. That takes us into COVID, and it has been a challenging couple of weeks with quarantining, staff outages, and just trying to keep everything up and running. I really have to thank and give kudos to the administrative team and their administrative assistants for keeping these buildings up and running. For the first time, if you guys know Mr. Carabanis, he never gets rattled. Yesterday was his day where he finally started to show a little bit of getting rattled. Much better today, though. We had, I think it was 16 staff members out at elementary school yesterday with 3 subs. But they made it work. We were able to get through the day. So kudos to everybody, and I really appreciate the effort the staff has put in to try to keep the kids in school, which is what we really, really want. I know there's been some questions that have come out. Is there a matrix? If so many kids are out or so many staff members, the answer is no. Keep in mind that if we are not in school, it's an emergency day. It is the snow day that we have to take away at this point. The governor reiterated again on Monday, no virtual instruction. So if we're not open, it's a snow day and we're making the day up somewhere along the way. So we're doing our best. I know it's not ideal, but again, thanks to the administrative team for keeping these buildings up and running. And hopefully we can get through the next 5 days, 4.5 days without much there. With that, the good news is our sports programs are still going, although some of the teams are getting hit with some quarantines. Swim team has been up and running. The swim team is off to an excellent start from what I've been seeing and hearing, so good for them. We get the rest of the sports rolling this weekend. I'm just going to remind parents there is a mask mandate in. We are still open to our spectators. Please wear your masks. We don't want to get shut down because parents are not wearing masks. So please wear masks. So Scott, go ahead.
You're still broadcasting the home games your students are?
Not every game, right, Mr. Bartow? Select games, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I know some districts are not allowing fans. I know some of the youth associations specifically are not allowing fans. We are still allowing people to come in, but we are really just pushing. Please have your masks. Please don't make us have to shut down. It's an easy requirement. I know nobody really likes it, but if it keeps our kids playing and our spectators there, please do it. That's really my plea for the day. Just a couple of quick things, not specific to Belvidere, but if you've been following along sometimes on social media, there have been a couple of specific threats to schools within the county over the last couple of days. Specifically, I know there was something in North Warren this afternoon. It seems to be like a little bit of an uptick right around this time. I was actually just talking to Officer Riley before, I should call him Chief Riley, but Chief Riley before this meeting, and we're having a meeting on Friday, and he says a lot of it's idle threat, but we need to take everything seriously. So, again, I think we've been in pretty good shape. We haven't had any issues. Let's hope that we don't. But I know if you hear stuff like that, our team reacts to it immediately. We're well trained. We have a great relationship with our law enforcement. We do have a SRO here, so hopefully nothing happens there. The last 2 things I have is with Mr. White's position. I did talk with our attorney about that. That is a position that is his 1-year term that is to be filled by the county superintendent. Okay. In fact, Shelley and I received an email from Rosalie earlier this week. The position is technically open. We're advertising. If anybody's interested, forward your information to us. We'll get it to her. My guess is she intends to have somebody to be approved at the reorganization meeting.
When will the opening, the window close for people to submit their?
What did we have a closing?
Right now, the closing date is December 22nd, so the
Okay.
last day before break.
Right before break.
And where is it posted?
On the website?
Just on the main website?
We have it outside on the,
Okay, I didn't see it there.
the signboard. It's on the app as well.
Oh, yeah.
It's on the app as well. So, and then if you have any other suggestions, let us know. We'll be happy to put it out.
There's,
Go ahead, Morris.
it's a, opening, there's one opening,
One opening,
and it's a 1 year.
1 year term. So it'd be, I think it's actually the finishing of Michelle Bacchino's original seat, right, that Andy took. Is that how? I forget. He came on last year.
Well, any
Yeah.
appointment is only good for 1 year until the following
Okay,
election.
just one.
That's true, yeah.
So with that, I'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge Mr. Smith. It's his last meeting. We know for sure because Brian did not rerun. Mary and I were trying to figure out how many years Brian has on the board. I know he doesn't probably want to say. We know it's way north of 25. But Brian, thank you for your service to the community for so many years. Yeah, absolutely. I know when I first interviewed for high school principal, you were board president back in those days. So thank you for all you've done for the kids in the community. You've done an outstanding job.
You're welcome. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the people of Belvidere. The district has improved dramatically since I took over. It's not north of 25. It's actually 20. I was elected in 99, so don't make me too old. But there's always room for improvement, and I'm wishing all the current and new board members continued success. And I also want to thank you and Shelley. You've always been available for me when I had questions, and I really appreciate both of your honesty, integrity, and professionalism in all the years I've served with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you, Brian.
Mrs. Williams, this is also her last meeting. Colleen's only been with us for a couple of years, but certainly you've had a huge impact, I think, on this board in a positive way. And again, appreciate all your service and time for our students.
Thank you, Colleen.
Yeah.
I'll give you a round of applause, too.
Now, Doc and Morris, you guys are certainly eligible to apply for the open seat, but in case you don't, thank you again, Doc. You've been on the board as long as I've been here, too. Again, I'm kind of saying the same things over, but it's all true. You've done an outstanding job as a board member. Appreciate what you've done for our students. Some of the things you do even behind the scenes that people don't know about, that we all know about, and you just done a great job, and I thank you for all your time. Morris, you've only been with us for a month and a half or 3 months, whatever it is, and we thank you for your contributions.
The shortest term on record, I think, right?
I don't know about that. Sure, if we went through, we would find some. And with that, I just want to wish everybody happy holidays. Remind everybody that we have a half a day next Wednesday, the 22nd, and we're off on the 23rd to start our vacation. So everybody enjoy your downtime. Stay happy, stay healthy, and the best to everybody in 2022.
Perfect. Okay, can I get a motion and a second for agenda items 1 and 2 under personnel?
Motion.
Second.
No, forget that. Any questions or comments?
Yes, I have a question. Why are we sending 6 people to the workshop?
We didn't get there yet, Bob. We're on items 1 and 2.
Oh, excuse me.
Any questions or comments on agenda items 1 and 2? No? Okay, Shelley, roll call?
Mr. Blum?
Yes.
Mrs. Costantino?
Yes.
Dr. Zuppeth?
Yes.
Mrs. Duckworth?
Yes.
Mrs. Weidlich?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mrs. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Steffen?
Yes.
Mr. Ty?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Okay, can I get a motion and a second for education items 3 through 12?
Motion.
Second.
Questions and comments? Bob, go.
Why are we proposing to send 6 individuals to the workshop?
So we have at least 2 or 3 will be presenting specifically. I know Mr. Karabinas and Ms. Gately will be presenting on our association with virtual high school. Mr. Lee, we would like to send because it is a tech conference. And the rest of us are part of the technology committee at the school. The last time we went, which was right before COVID, we did come away with some excellent ideas. I thought it was one of the more collaborative items that we've done since I've been here, and we were just hoping to do it a second time and have that, hopefully see the improvement within the district.
I noticed there's a meal allowance of $103. Why is that included in the travel cost?
That's the state OEM model. That's what is approved for people to do travel. It's a half-day amount for days that you're leaving and returning, and there's a full-day allowance in between. We usually put that in. It's very rare that anyone actually puts in for anywhere near that amount when they return. Some people will put in for their actual cost, which may be, considerably less, or they don't put in at all. But it's something that the travel regs allow for people to put in for when they are outside of the district.
I've gone to the Atlantic City Convention multiple times. I don't ever remember a meals allowance.
I'd have to check on whether that applies to the board members or if it's for employees specifically, but we've never had any requests from board members to put in for any type of meals. I have to read the regulations. That came out in 2010. That was the new travel regs.
Okay, well, I will not support this. I feel it like 6 people is too excessive.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments or questions? No? We all good? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed to number 9.
And abstentions. Okay. Can I get a motion and a second for business items 13 through 17?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? No? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Okay, what do we have for continuing business?
Can I just add on to my comments real quick? I also am remiss because I didn't thank Ms. March and Ms. Golda for their efforts over the last, their whole careers really, but certainly over the last couple of weeks and trying to keep everybody together. And, I think those two don't ever show any signs of breaking down. They are the rocks of Gibraltar, so to speak, and they've done an outstanding job. And every time I talk to Ms. Golda, which is about twice a week, I look at her and really hope she's not going to retire. I know she's going to. But they've gone above and beyond, and words don't do justice to what they've done. So I do want to thank them. So.
Okay, anything, what else do we have in our continuing business? I think there's more. I don't have my notes with me. I came right from work.
We did talk about that ad hoc committee. I know that was a big something
that
we've
was a
discussed
big
quite
one.
a few times. So it was in continuing.
You have something?
Yeah, I'd like to just thank all the administration and the staff for supporting all the activities we're trying to do with the kids, and for the volunteers that have stepped up to run the programs. Mr. Carabinas says a bunch. I know he's running the sports one himself, he said. So I'd like to thank them all, because without them, this would have never come forth. And the support of the board to get our kids active again and everything. I know we didn't talk about it, but I know at the meeting we were talking about they're going to do an art component and stuff to the after-school activities too for the kids. So
good.
it's more than just sports. It's just activities in
Yeah.
general. It's going to be lots of things, an art one, and we're talking about,
Yeah.
even maths and different
Yeah, the drama
things,
club
too.
too, doing things and things like that.
Good. Anything else for continuing business?
The only thing, the other day when Chris said 16 people were out with 3 substitutes, I live that on a daily basis. My job is a teacher in a neighboring district. I was 4 people today and myself. So the fact that you pulled off 16 absences with 3 substitutes deserves a round of applause. And Chris, you could sort of lose your mind over that one. I get it. I don't know how schools are keeping their doors open with the amount of subs we share in this county. There are just so few. We have 2 ladies that sub for us on a regular basis, and that's it. So it is a tough time right now. So kudos to administration, because I know you all covering classes. So great job.
Good job, guys. Any other continuing business? No. How about new business? Anybody have anything new?
Just probably should mention that we're in orange for people that
Good point.
don't know what
Yeah.
that means.
Yeah, we are in orange. So that means the biggest impact is the 14-day quarantine versus the 10-day. And for non-vaccinated, you cannot test out of quarantine like you were able to do in the yellow. And I would argue that we would be in red before we would be back in yellow at the rate we're going. Just keep in mind, red is an optional shutdown. I don't believe we would go down that road at this point.
I have a question about, I know that the teachers have all kind of opened up their Google Meets with so many kids quarantining. And I understand if the school's not letting you in because you have to quarantine, the Google Meet should be on. I'm concerned that there's day-to-day kids just not going to school now. They're not quarantining, and they're logging in. And I really feel like we have to put a hard line there because you're a hair away from going virtual then. And I just want to be cautious about that. I don't, that's just my
That's a good
opinion.
point.
I don't think
Yeah,
that
we
that
can
should
keep
be
an eye on
an
that.
option.
Go ahead, Chris.
What was that?
We can't hear you, Chris. Sorry.
We are not allowing, like exactly what you're saying. We're holding the line with unexcused absences, and we have 37 right now that fall into the quarantine category. So we are sticking to the hard line.
Okay,
Okay,
so if
just-
the kids log in, the teachers are going to kindly just say, I'm sorry, you can't be here today? Like,
No. But it's how we market in the system. You know what I'm saying? Like they can, it's the
No, I
attend,
understand,
but we aren't doing the, come on is, if we have to offer synchronous instruction, we
Right.
aren't going to, it's how we market in the system is unexcused, but it's not, we can work out the details because we're good. And we're holding the line.
Okay.
Okay?
Any other new business?
We'll look into that. We'll keep it.
And yeah, I don't think she was really warm fuzzy on that.
No.
Hmm?
I don't think you had a warm fuzzy on that.
No, I know. I think he and I are on the same page with this. I know how easy it is for some kids just say, what's the point? You know, I'll just log in, and that's just not what we have right now. So
All right, well, if there's no other new business, we have an executive session, but we'll do public participation first, and will we be taking action? Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, okay. So does there anybody have any public participation? No? Okay, so we'll close public participation. Can I get a motion and a second to go into executive session to discuss an HIB, or several HIB cases?
No grievance.
I didn't say grievance.
I know, I'm just making sure everyone is aware we have no grievance.
Second?
Second.
Okay, so we're all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we're gonna go to an executive session. When we come out, we will take action.
Where are we going? Sounds wonderful.
Thank you. We ready? Okay, we're back. So can I get a motion and a second to approve the HIB findings?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Can I get a motion and a second to adjourn?
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We're done. And so are at least 2 of you.
Don't worry, you'll see me.
Have a good night, Doug.